Nita Lambert, and I'll be reading When the Bearded Lady Found Love by Allison Landa. Even before I started growing a beard, I realized love might be elusive. It wasn't exactly some aha moment. I was 10 years old, hanging out in our suburban San Diego living room, a tribute to the 1970s in orange and brown tones, the furniture fluffier than our dog. I was noodling around on a rowing machine that no one but me ever used, listening to the Everly Brothers on the hi-fi. Then the voice, speaking low and slow and directly to me. It'll take a while. How could I possibly know what that meant? But I did. 2 years later, the hair appeared, hanging out as if it had a right, scratchy under my hand as if to say, "Hi, I'm here." It's not often that your fate announces itself to you. When it does, you'd best listen. But I didn't. Neither did my parents, who failed to seek medical attention for me. Instead, my mother took me into the bathroom, walls stained from many cigarettes she smoked on the sly there, and taught me to shave my face. It'll take a while. The voice grew louder and more pointed over time. It became a comfort, a mantra, when my mother told me the facial hair was unattractive, when I watched my friends start to date. I had plenty of boy friends, but no boyfriends. Years later, I would learn that the hair was the result of congenital adrenal hyperplasia, a condition that gives its female sufferers with obesity, infertility, and male pattern balding, in addition to the extra hair growth. It grew thick and black, forcing me to shave twice a day to keep it under control. But I could never prevent people from seeing what they were going to see. I developed a raunchy, loud persona to give people something else to notice about me. By the time I was 28 years old, returning from a half-year stint teaching English in the Czech Republic, it was finally home. Meanwhile, love was indeed taking the slow boat. That didn't mean I hadn't been on dates, hadn't had sex. I'd done both while overseas. It made me feel less alone when it was happening, and then once it was over, I was emptier than I'd been before. But I couldn't just concentrate on that. I had bills to pay. I returned to California with my rent overdue and my phone disconnected. I needed a job. Moving to the Czech Republic was a short-term solution to my struggle to make a living through freelance writing. Like so many others who saw their passports as magic wands, I hoped to write the great American novel, to find lasting love. Instead, I drank too much beer and learned how to curse in a foreign language. Enter Bayer Corporation. Its Berkeley campus sits glaring out at the San Francisco Bay, gates and guards a stark rebuke to all who might contemplate invading. My work was to play with Microsoft Word while occasionally cheating with Excel. My office was a cubicle in a trailer so lopsided and without personality that it almost featured its own variation on charm. Those who worked inside had made no effort to disguise its flaws. I should be so brave. My boss settled me into my quarters and handed me a clutch of meaningless documentation, left me to ponder my fate. What I didn't realize was that my fate would walk right up to me, sounding as if he had sucked a helium balloon for breakfast. But as we talked, I realized I actually kind of liked him. Adam, 24 years old, 2 years removed from graduation at Berkeley. Blue eyes behind metal glasses, curly, close-cropped dark hair. More than anything, he struck me as the kind of person who was selflessly thoughtful. He was the one who would bring you a chair without waiting to be asked, who would send flowers, not to rectify any wrong, but just because. And he was taken, very much so. Never before had I met someone who seemed so at home with who he was, so aware of what could be seen as a liability, and so unwilling to let it get under his skin. He was a unique one. He was confident. I hated him for it. Steph works at Children's, he told me one day over lunch. She's trying to get me a job there. Research. I studied genetics at Cal, so it's kind of the logical next step. When I realized I didn't want him to leave our shared workplace, I knew I was in real trouble. Love had arrived, but what to do about it? Every night he packed up and went home to his girlfriend. He was not mine to touch, or kiss, or caress, or trust in that way of intimate partners. Then came the Carey house, the dive bar just steps from my front door. There was him, and there was me, and there were the pictures I was showing him, Prague and Paris and London to boot. And then there was his arm around me. And somehow, we were kissing hard, hard enough that my teeth hurt for hours afterwards. I never enjoyed being kissed, never could tolerate having my face caressed. He did it in a way that made me know I was seen, accepted, and loved. For the first time since that little girl realized she was going to have to wait longer than she might have liked for someone, I was normal. Eventually, he broke up with his girlfriend. What I began to learn was that falling in love is as much a process of forgetting as realizing. We start out objective, but the more our minds grow softer around the edges, the further our walls drop, the more we see our beloved through the lens of our passion. Eventually, I stopped noticing his voice. Later on, he would tell me that he never noticed my beard. How? When that was the first thing I ever thought about when I entered a room, when I met someone for the first time, when I glanced into a mirror. I started to let him see me in the mornings, tousled, my face unshaven. I watched for a reaction, almost hoping for one. I never saw anything. And I never discussed the matter out loud with him. He never brought it up, neither did I. Not until he got down on one knee in front of a small Fringe Festival audience at Under St. Mark's. Not until we began to talk about hiring a wedding photographer. It was hard enough to let Adam point the camera in my direction, but to let a stranger do it. I have to. We were back at our Berkeley cottage, surfing on our separate laptops. I honed in on my screen. I couldn't look at him as the words dropped. Look, I said, squinting at the pop-up that had somehow evaded my ad block software. I don't want to look like a man in my wedding photos, okay? I just don't. My head fell into my hands. Could I have accepted a bearded woman as my partner? How much different was my beard than his voice? You're crying, he said. I have a beard, I said. The words hung like vapor for a single second. Even if I could have taken them back, I wouldn't. You have gorgeous brown eyes, he said, and a great butt, and you're an adventurer. Did I mention you have a great butt? Love had truly arrived. But before we made it official, I was going to do something about the hair. When I told Adam I planned to have laser hair removal, he said, sounds expensive. Then he accompanied me to each session and handed his credit card to the receptionist. The sessions were many. The pain was plentiful. The results were stunning. You still have a great butt, Adam said. We were married April 6, 2008. 7.5 years later, we had a son. Someone who had never seen me as I once looked, but who also represented a chance for me to show him what his father had shown me so viscerally. Love sees what you are, not just how you appear. It's that love, the love I awaited, the love that was in the wings longer than I probably knew. Devotion that speaks in a slightly higher register.